There comes a moment in a parent's life when you sit quietly and wonder how the relationship with your children changed so much. Years ago, they looked to you for everything: guidance, comfort, protection. But now, as adults, some of them speak sharply, dismiss your opinions, or treat your presence as an afterthought. Many parents in their 50s, 60s, and 70s quietly carry this hurt, believing they must simply endure it because that's how children are these days. But respect is not something that disappears overnight. It fades slowly, through patterns and unspoken expectations. The good news is that you can begin restoring it, not by force or argument, but through calm, deliberate shifts. The first step is setting boundaries without anger. Most parents hesitate to do this because they fear upsetting their adult children or appearing confrontational. But boundaries are not confrontations. They are clarifications. They help both sides understand what is acceptable and what is not. When adult children believe their parents will tolerate anything, disrespect becomes automatic. But when a parent calmly states what they will no longer accept, it interrupts the pattern. Consider the experience of Arif, a 62-year-old father who spent years being spoken to in a dismissive tone by his son. Every conversation left him feeling small, and he convinced himself that staying silent was keeping the peace. One day, after another harsh comment, he simply said, "I want to talk with you, but not if I'm being spoken to like this. Let's continue when we can be respectful." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He didn't lecture. He just set a clear boundary. His son didn't change overnight, but the message was undeniable. The rules had shifted. Boundaries, when delivered with calm confidence, change the emotional temperature of the relationship. They remind your children that your dignity matters too. And the moment you honor your own dignity, others begin to honor it as well. The second step to rebuilding respect is speaking less, but with more intention. Many parents unknowingly talk their way into misunderstandings. Out of love and worry, they offer advice, warnings, reminders, and corrections, even when their adult children haven't asked for it. What begins as care is sometimes received as interference. And over time, children start tuning out the very voice that once guided their entire life. This doesn't mean you should stop sharing your thoughts. It means your words become more powerful when they're used with purpose. When you speak less, your presence becomes stronger. When you choose your moments thoughtfully, your message carries weight. Take the example of Shabnam, a mother in her late 50s. She cared deeply for her daughter and constantly tried to help, reminding her about bills, giving her advice about relationships, offering guidance for her job. But her daughter began responding with impatience, saying things like, "I know, Mom," or "Please stop telling me what to do." It hurt, yet Shabnam realized her daughter no longer heard the intention behind the words, only the pressure. So she made a simple shift. She spoke only when her daughter seemed open to listening. She asked questions instead of giving lectures. She replaced long explanations with short, thoughtful comments. Within weeks, something changed. Her daughter started calling more often, not less. She began asking for advice rather than avoiding it. The relationship softened, and respect grew naturally. When your words become fewer, they become clearer. When you stop repeating yourself, your message becomes more meaningful. And when you let silence do some of the work, your children begin to lean in rather than pull away. The third step in restoring respect is reclaiming your independence, emotionally, socially, and practically. Many parents don't realize that the more they appear to depend on their adult children for happiness, decision-making, or approval, the less those children value them. Respect grows when your children see you standing firmly on your own feet, not waiting for them to validate your choices or fill every empty moment in your life. Parents often sacrifice their own interests over the years, pouring all their time into raising their families. But once the children grow up, the parents' world becomes smaller if they don't rebuild it. And when your entire identity revolves around your children, they begin to see you as someone who has nothing outside of them, someone whose emotional life depends entirely on their attention. That dynamic quietly erodes respect. Consider Kamal, a father in his early 70s. After retirement and the loss of his wife, he found himself waiting by the phone, hoping for calls from his children. When they didn't call, he felt forgotten. When they were too busy to visit, he felt rejected. This pattern continued until one day he decided to reclaim the pieces of his life he had set aside. He joined a local reading group, started walking with neighbors in the mornings, and spent afternoons learning basic photography, a hobby he had always admired but never explored. A few months later, something unexpected happened. His children began calling more often, curious about his activities. They noticed a change in his voice, a sense of vitality they hadn't heard in years. They started seeking his opinion again, asking for guidance, asking questions, making time. The shift came not because he demanded respect, but because he rebuilt a life that naturally invited it. When you invest in yourself, you send an unspoken message. I am whole. I am capable. I am still growing. Adult children respect parents who respect themselves. The fourth step in regaining respect is learning to respond instead of reacting. Disrespect from adult children often triggers an instinctive emotional response: hurt, anger, disappointment. Many parents react in the heat of the moment, raising their voice, defending themselves, or reminding their children of all the sacrifices they made. While these reactions are completely understandable, they rarely improve the situation. In fact, emotional reactions often reinforce the very behavior you're trying to change. The power lies in your pause. When you pause, you take back control of the moment. When you respond calmly, your children are forced to confront their own behavior instead of focusing on your reaction. Calmness is not weakness. It is authority in its most mature form. Let's look at the story of Nazreen, a 64-year-old mother whose daughter had developed a habit of snapping whenever conversations became stressful. For years, Nazreen reacted immediately, defending herself, explaining endlessly, or withdrawing in hurt silence. One day, after a particularly sharp remark, she chose a different path. She took a breath and said, "I'm here to talk, but I will only continue if we can speak respectfully. Let's pause for now." Then she ended the conversation. She felt nervous afterward, unsure how her daughter would respond. But something remarkable happened. Later that evening, her daughter called back, calmer, softer, aware of her own tone. For the first time, the conversation ended with mutual understanding rather than tension. When you respond instead of react, you model the very behavior you want to receive. You demonstrate emotional maturity, patience, and strength. You teach your children without preaching how to treat you. And most importantly, you reclaim your peace. Respect grows in the space created by thoughtful responses, not heated reactions. The fifth step in rebuilding respect is stopping the habit of overgiving. Many parents believe that giving more help, more money, more time, more emotional support will bring closeness or appreciation. But in reality, constant giving without limits often has the opposite effect. When adult children receive everything too easily, they begin to expect it. And when something is expected rather than appreciated, respect slowly fades. Overgiving usually comes from love, but sometimes it also comes from fear. Fear of losing the relationship, fear of being left out, fear of not being needed anymore. Parents often think, if I keep doing everything, they'll value me. But real respect doesn't grow from sacrifice. It grows from balance. Take the example of Farida, a 59-year-old mother who had spent years helping her son with every financial setback, cooking for him whenever he visited, and babysitting his children at a moment's notice. She rarely said no, even when she was exhausted. Her son didn't mean to take advantage, but over time, he stopped noticing her effort. It had become routine. It had become invisible. One day, after struggling with back pain, Farida realized she was helping everyone except herself. She decided to make a small but powerful change. When her son asked for help with something minor, she replied gently, "I can't today. I need to rest." She felt guilty at first, but her son responded differently than she expected. He paused and said, "Okay, Mom, take care of yourself. I'll manage." That moment shifted the dynamic. Her no wasn't rejection. It was a reminder that she had limits, needs, and a life of her own. As she stopped overgiving, her son began stepping up more, doing things himself, and appreciating her help when she did offer it. When you give wisely instead of endlessly, your value becomes visible again. Respect grows when your children see that your support is meaningful, not automatic, not guaranteed, and not unlimited. The sixth step in restoring respect is letting go of guilt and standing tall in your worth. Many parents carry a silent burden, the belief that every flaw in their adult children is somehow their fault. This guilt makes them tolerate disrespect, excuse hurtful behavior, and stay quiet when they should speak. But guilt weakens your presence. It makes you shrink, apologize unnecessarily, and accept treatment that you would never advise another person to accept. Respect cannot grow where guilt lives. Adult children may not say it out loud, but they instinctively respect a parent who stands confidently in who they are, flaws, imperfections, history, and all. You don't need to be perfect to deserve kindness, patience, and dignity. Consider the story of Sohail, a father of 3. For years, he blamed himself for every argument, every misunderstanding, every emotional distance in the family. Whenever his children spoke harshly, he responded with apologies, even when he had done nothing wrong. Deep down, he believed he had failed them in some way. But during a quiet evening, he realized something important. His children were adults now, responsible for their behavior, their tone, and their choices. He could guide them, but he could not carry their emotional responsibilities forever. From that day on, Sohail stopped approaching his children with guilt and started approaching them with steadiness. He didn't argue. He didn't justify. He simply held himself with quiet dignity. The change was subtle at first, but powerful. Conversations became calmer. His children listened more. They stopped dismissing his feelings. They began treating him not as a man weighed down by regret, but as a parent who knew his own value. The truth is simple. Respect begins inside you before it appears in your home. When you walk with self-respect, others adjust around you. And this is the heart of the message. Children do not respect parents because of age alone. They respect parents who model emotional stability, set boundaries, speak with intention, nurture their independence, give with balance, and refuse to let guilt shape their relationships. You cannot control your children's behavior, but you can control the standard you set. And when that standard rises, the relationship begins to transform. Slowly, quietly, but unmistakably.